Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador confirmed he will dialogue with presidents from the region to counter inflation in the country. Protests rage in France after Premier Elizabeth Borne forced through President Macron's controversial pension reform without putting it to a vote in the lower house. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with the leaders of Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan on the sidelines of the extraordinary summit of the Organization of Turkic States. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On Thursday, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador confirmed he will dialogue with presidents from the region to counter inflation in the continent. AMLO confirmed the participation in the regional virtual meeting on April the 5th via video conference on the Presidents Alberto Fernández from Argentina, Luis Arce from Bolivia, and Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva from Brazil, as well as other head of states such as Chilean Gabriel Boric, Colombian Gustavo Petro, Cuban Miguel Díaz-Canel, and President Xiomara Castro from Honduras. The Premier of Belize, Juan Antonio Briceño, of the San Vicente of the Grenadines, Rolf Solves, who is President pro tempore of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, will also take part in the meeting. The Mexican President explained that the idea is to discuss first a plan for economic exchange, the import and export of food and other goods to face regional inflation together. In Panama, a government report highlights that since 2007 to date, over 80,000 people have been taught to read and write thanks to a program based on the Cuban method, Yo Si Puedo, in English, Yes I Can. The head of the Ministry of Social Development, Maria Inés Castillo, said that the Movete por Panamá program restored the rights of Panamanians by providing them with basic tools for growth, as is the ability to read and write. In this way, the minister assured that the current administration of President Laurentino Cortizo has set its sight on the most vulnerable population, which have been excluded from many years. The success of the program is due to the fact that classes are offered in the students' environments where they are guaranteed didactics implemented in addition to training for volunteer teachers, most of whom are the relatives of the illiterate. The number of deaths after several explosions in a coal mine in Sultatausa, Colombia, rose to 21, as confirmed on Thursday by the local governor Nicolás Garcia. The Colombian President Gustavo Petro regretted the incident and expressed his solidarity with the families of the victims. The sinister occurred on Tuesday night, apparently to the accumulation of methane gas that exploded in a complex of 7 interconnected sinkholes, according to local authorities. The governor of the Cundinamarca department also informed that 9 surviving miners who have been hospitalized at El Salvador Hospital in Abuté has been discharged.
We can now confirm the discovery of the 10 bodies we had yet to recover, all the lifeless. Unfortunately, the total number of the casualties is now 21. We are finishing the extraction from the mine of the last 2 bodies.
In Brazil, President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, along with his Paraguayan counterpart, took part in the inauguration ceremony for the new Director General of the Itaipu Binational Hydroelectric Power Plant in the Paraná department. The new Brazilian director of Itaipu, Enio Berri, thanked President Lula da Silva for his confidence and said that in return he pledged to manage the plant efficiently. Verria that the plan not only means power generation, but that it is also a symbol of binational cooperation and development. In this context, Lula da Silva said to meet with Peruvian President Mario Benitez to discuss the cooperation agreement for the hydroelectric power plant. The Chilean justice system sentenced former Army Brigadier General Orlando Carter to 10 years in prison for the murder of 2 militants of the revolutionary left movement during the military dictatorship that ruled the country from 1973 to the 90s. The young law students Bautistas Van Schoen, founder of the MIR, and Patricio Munita were shot in the back on December 14, 1973 in Santiago de Chile. For the plaintiff, a lawyer and representative of the victim's family, Nelson Caucoto, the justice system was able to reveal a complex and sophisticated intelligence network and did not allow these crimes to go unpunished. During Augusto Pinochet's regime, more than 40,000 cases of crimes against humanity were registered in the country, including 3,200 murders and disappearances. The United Nations Special Envoy to Haiti warned that the ongoing training and the resources that the international community is providing to the country's national police force is not enough to fight increasingly violent gangs. Helen LaMaille, head of the United Nations Integrated Office in the Caribbean nation, made a statement at an Organization of American States meeting in Washington, D.C. She called once again for the development of a specialized fighting force. Powerful gangs have been infiltrating once peaceful communities in Port-au-Prince and beyond, with experts estimating that they now control about 60% of the capital. And in the U.S., rural officials have reported to local media that a train that derailed on Wednesday evening in western Arizona was carrying none but corn syrup. This was in response to an earlier statement made by the county chief officer spokesperson, who alleged a train has been carrying hazardous material. The derailment happened in a rural, non-residential area in Mulva County, Arizona, near the state's border with California. The Freight Railroad Company stated that 8 cars derailed and are blocking the main track. The cause of the accident is under investigation. It is still not clear when the track will reopen. Let's take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back from the south. French Premier Elisabeth Borne on Thursday told the parliament the government would force through President Emmanuel Macron's controversial pension reform without putting it to a vote in the lower house. Borne announced the move as left-wing members of the parliament were signing La Monsieur Len's French National Assembly while holding up signs that read 64-year-old is no, protesting the rise of retirement age of the official reform. The Council of Ministers held an emergency meeting to activate Article 9.3 of the French Constitution, which makes it possible for a text to be adopted without a vote of deputies in order to pass the pension reform, just minutes before lawyers were scheduled to vote in the National Assembly.
We cannot gamble on the future of our pensions. This reform is necessary. Also because I am attached to our social model and because I believe in parliamentary democracy, it is on your reform, on the parliament text, the fruit of a compromise between the two chambers, that I am ready to engage my responsibility. Therefore, on the basis of Article 49, paragraph 3 of the Constitution, I commit my government's responsibility for the whole of Social Security Amendment Bill for 2023, modified by the Coordination Amendment communicated to the National Assembly.
In this context, French far-right leader Marine Le Pen stated the government's use in Article 49.3 to force its pension reform through the parliament is admissible.
Of course this is inadmissible, obviously, because once again, it's not a question of forcing the majority, as it's normally the nature of Article 49.3. It's a question of preventing the expression of the will of the French people through their elected representatives. They didn't manage to find a majority because they were bad. This reform was unfair, badly prepared, badly conceived, badly presented. And until the end, it was like that. Well, in these conditions, when we are faced with a potential vote against, which would obviously have been the case, we withdraw. That's it. We withdraw because, once again, that's democracy.
And after French President Emmanuel Macron on Thursday ran a controversial pension reform through parliament without a vote, using a rare constitutional power, several thousand people gathered to demonstrate in the Place de la Concorde in Paris across the Seine River from the French National Assembly. Trade unions and political analysts had warned beforehand that adopting the legislations without a vote by invoking Article 49.3 of the Constitution risks radicalizing opponents and will undercut la democracy legislative. Among other arguments, trade unions and other critics said the reform will penalty low-income people in manual jobs who tend to start their career early, forcing them to work longer than graduates who are less affected by the changes. In Greece, over 3,000 people demonstrated on Thursday across the country, expressing their anger in last month's train tragedy, an incident which claimed 57 lives. People said the crash on February the 28th exposed decades of safety and failing in Greek railways and has put pressure on the conservative government ahead of the national elections. In this way, the people's main claim in the streets is that they want the government to be held accountable for the crash. Thursday, protests were coupled by a 24-hour strike, the biggest yet after days of industrial actions that followed the disaster. This time, the strike was called on by the Greeks linger the private and public sectors unions. In the U.S., tens of thousands of workers of the Los Angeles Unfilled Schools District announced on Wednesday a 3-day strike for the next week over the steel contract negotiations. Teachers have said they will join in, which will call for a shutdown of the nation's second-largest school system due to the security reasons. Strike is set to begin next Tuesday. The union representations close to 30,000 support staff, ranging from teachers, aides, bus drivers to cafeteria workers, along with some 35,000 teachers, counselors, and other staffers. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has highlighted in the interview his support for the expansion of Russian military base in Syria in order to balance the force in the world. Al-Assad arrived in Moscow on Tuesday and met with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday. Both heads of state discussed the development of the bilateral relations and cooperation between Moscow and Damascus in the political, humanitarian, and trade economic schemes, as well as the prospect for the settlement of the Syrian conflict.
We believe that if Russia has a desire to expand bases or increase their number, it is a technical or logistical issue. If there is that desire, then we believe that expanding the Russian presence in Syria will be good. Superpowers cannot defend themselves or play a role by staying within their own borders. They must do so further afield through allies or military bases. Therefore, Russia's military presence should not be temporary and limited to the counter-terrorism.
teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through SUR dial 461 and your Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with the leaders of Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan in the capital Ankara on the sidelines of the extraordinary summit of the organizations of the Turkic states. At the summit, which focuses on disaster and emergency management and humanitarian aid, the leaders discussed solid multilateral cooperation and coordination mechanisms as part of the organization in the fight against disasters and held consultations on current challenges in the region. The organization of the Turkic states, formerly called Turkic Council, is an international organization prominent independent Turkic countries that work together to elevate relations and the union among themselves. Israeli protesters returned to the streets on Thursday to rally against postponed judicial reform after Premier Benjamin Netanyahu rejected a compromise plan promoted by the country's president. Demonstrators gathered in Tel Aviv stated the reform, several provisions of which have already been adopted by the parliament, are a tool of democracy. The people also gathered in Jerusalem and north city of Haifa to denounce the overhaul that will, among other things, allow lawmakers to overhaul Supreme Court ruling with a simple majority vote. In Ethiopia, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with African Union Commission Chairperson Musaim Afik Mohammed in Addis Ababa to discuss shared global and regional priorities. During their meeting, both leaders exchanged views regarding the progress in the implementation of the cessation of hostilities agreement and other regional issues of mutual interest. In this official working visit to Ethiopia, Secretary Blinken also held an in-depth discussion with Premier Abiy Ahmed on various domestic, bilateral, and regional issues. Asian stock markets plunged on Thursday after a drop in credit SAS shares, raising concern about a possible banking crisis following the failure of two major U.S. financial firms. Some markets in Shanghai, Tokyo, Hong Kong, and Sydney fell as much as 1.5%, with major Asian banks suffering the biggest declines and on Wednesday rallying reserve. This after Credit Suisse reported a 30% drop in its shares, reviving concern about the financial industries following the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank in the second and third large bank failure in the U.S. history. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For teleSUR English, I'm from the South. I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.